You guys can hear this.
Hello and welcome to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Friends. Normally we end the show this way. This week we're starting it this way with the classic Bill McMorris moment. Glad you're all able to be with us tonight. We're having some technical difficulties, but hopefully we're on and broadcasting and everyone is able to see us. I want to thank my regular panel for being here tonight. Scott Lincicome of the Cato Institute, thank you for joining us. Neal of the Federalist, Jeff Blehar of the Ace of Spades Decision Desk, and now Bill McMorris of the Washington Free Beacon. We're hopeful to be joined by Andrea Ruth, a Pocketful of Liberty. I guess that she is having some technical difficulties logging in as well. We seem to be afflicted with those tonight, but we'll try to get her on as soon as we can. So let's move right into the news of the day. Today is Thursday, July the 30th of 2015. And we're still talking about Planned Parenthood. This is the second week in a row we've been back on this topic, and we have basically an ongoing series of these, and there's been a lot of developments in the story. And the first question that I have is going to be for Scott. And Scott, I'm just going to ask you, how would you evaluate the PR response for Planned Parenthood so far? I mean, in terms of crisis management, how would you say the PR has done? Granted that they don't have a very high bar to clear in terms of keeping themselves afloat at the government trough.
I'd say not very well. I think they've kind of lived up to I think it's the Taranto's Law, named after Jim Taranto over at the Wall Street Journal, that the left being in the cocoon of the media and their buddies in the media, they tend to get kind of soft, and they don't really get ready, and they're not really hardened by trial by fire, as it were. So, I mean, let's face it, the hack thing was ridiculous. They claim they're hacked, and then a few hours later take it all back and blame it on system maintenance after everyone saw right through that. It seemed that the machine was working well for a few days, but let's face it, the Center for Medical Progress really has their act together in terms of making sure this is going to be a long and painful process. And as today's video made clear, it seems to be only getting more incriminating and more immoral as we go.
So Neal, let's talk a little bit about this so-called hack. I mean, have you ever seen anything so preposterous by an organization this large and in the public eye that they essentially faked their own website being hacked? I mean, talk a little bit about this so-called attack that they. I mean, if you went to their website, it said we've been under attack by extremists.
Right. Yeah. They said they were being attacked, being hacked, or what have you. Their donation page, strangely enough, was still functioning, which was interesting. If you're advertising the fact that you're under any sort of attack by hackers, I don't think you'd want to have your donation page up and running. But yeah, as it turns out, it seems to be that they experienced some sort of technical difficulties, which we're familiar with these tonight. But that sort of just gives them, I guess, some cover to say, well, we weren't lying about being hacked. We weren't fundraising off the, untruth that we were under attack from abortion extremists, anti-abortion extremists. So yeah, it's strange because they just hired this, really sharp, prestigious PR firm to handle this, and they need all the help they can get. It seems they don't appear terribly coordinated. They don't appear to have a clue how to respond to this, other than to try to pressure news outlets to ignore the story for as long as they can and not show people the video. So I'm not at all. I don't make a habit of going to the Planned Parenthood website, so I missed the entire story until well after it happened. But it's just a strange thing.
I saw it because Caleb Powell, who's been on the show a number of times before, had a story that went up about it, and I went and I looked, and I mean, it very clearly said, we're under attack, and this website is down, and all these people who come to this information looking for information on healthcare, which is, of course, their euphemism, I guess, for abortion are being denied that, and then there was a link that you could click to go to their donation page. And look, I mean,
it was clear as mud, Leon.
Yeah, well, to me, I mean, as much as we make fun of, the Donald and some other organizations, I mean, it's just no other organization could get away with pulling a stunt like this and not be an instant national joke. I mean, just national joke. I mean, any right-leaning organization, any Koch-funded organization that had tried this crap, that faked themselves being hacked with the link to their donation page, would be mocked mercilessly by Jon Stewart. I don't know if he's even is he still on the air? This is like the longest goodbye in the history of the universe.
He's got, I think, literally a week and a half left, or a week and a couple of days.
Everybody in the world would have been making fun of this nonsense, and when it comes to Planned Parenthood, there's nothing. So let's go to Bill. Hillary was asked, should there be a congressional inquiry into Planned Parenthood? And this to me is kind of an indication of how bad things are for Planned Parenthood right now. Hillary was asked, should there be an inquiry into Planned Parenthood? And her response was kind of confusing. She says, well, if so, it should look at everything and not just one part of it.
Yeah,
what the heck does that even mean?
Well, she was actually going more extreme than congressional Republicans have been on this, because she was saying, don't just investigate Planned Parenthood, investigate every abortion clinic in the country. And that was a very startling statement to me. And I since day one when this story broke, the Free Beacon, after every video is released, has called up every single Democratic president and begged them to comment on this issue and talk about it. And they've dodged it for weeks, but this week Rand Paul called her out. He finally went on offense and said Democrats should have to answer for the actions of some of their biggest campaign donors. And it forced the media to actually confront this head on. And my hat's off to the New Hampshire union leader, because they were the ones who had the stones to actually ask Hillary Clinton what she thought about this. And she'd initially defended the group, in stage campaign events. She had, pulled out all the talking points about women's health care and heavily edited video. But this week she actually pulled the curtain back and said, I haven't seen the video, but the imagery and the photos I've seen were very disturbing. And this was just hours after Planned Parenthood released its own poll saying, hey, it was a loaded poll question, and they were like, hey, 60%, we enjoy 60% approval from the public. And I'm not going to believe a poll commissioned by Planned Parenthood of a couple hundred voters. I will take seriously the fact that this video is so bad for Planned Parenthood that Hillary Clinton felt the need to condemn them. And when the top recipient of Planned Parenthood cash is out there calling this video disturbing, it's resonating with the American people. So my hat's off to the Center for Medical Progress for actually inducing a Democrat to apologize over the barbarism they've sanctioned for 50 years.
So Jeff, in addition to the way that Hillary kind of gave the response that Bill just covered, Josh Earnest was asked today, kind of point blank, will the president veto any bill that defunds Planned Parenthood? And he gave kind of, I guess, what you would call a no comment response. I mean, it was not. I fully expected him to say yes, the president stands behind Planned Parenthood, and instead he kind of gave a well, we're still waiting for all the facts to come in. And listen, I, from the bottom of my very cynical heart at the beginning of this story, have said since the first video came out, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to happen. There's no way the Democrats let Planned Parenthood take the bullet on this. Are we seeing the beginning cracks of something that might indicate that they will? I mean, after all, I said the same thing about Acorn, and at the end of the day, the Democrats allowed Acorn to go up in flames. Do you think this will end up any different?
I still think you have to bet against it for all the reasons that you just articulated. But the analog to me that seems even more apt than Acorn is not that one, but rather the Anthony Weiner scandal. And I think it was someone on Twitter who pointed out that we haven't seen the likes of this sort of a staged media rollout from the Center for Media Progress since Andrew Breitbart unfortunately died of a heart attack back in 2012. Because I initially, when they first rolled out that Robert Trzynski of the Federalist, actually, he wrote 3 days ago. He said, I saw these initial videos and I thought they overpromised and underdelivered. They're scandalous, sure, but they didn't really bring the goods in the way that I was expecting them to do. And that was kind of my thought. I was like, well, this is obviously a moral catastrophe, but you don't quite have the legal grounds to do something. And then all of a sudden, this one dropped today, and I had a holy shit moment. I remember Scott and I were talking about this morning. I could not believe that they had these guys on video saying, "Yeah, we say it's all about medical research, but really that's just positioning. We're in it for the profit." And I was like, "Fuck! They got someone to say that on camera," and they waited.
They anticipated the criticism, which we didn't think they were going to do.
But that was the Andrew Breitbart style, which is what he was so good at. He got people. He rolled out a little bit. He got them to deny, to defend, to deny, to defend, and then once they had gone on the record, then he sawed off the limb right behind them, and they let them plunge into the ocean. And I have to say, at this point, I've got more confidence in CMP and in the way they're handling the rollout of this material. I had thought that the worst came out the first week, but if this one is any indication, then it's quite possible that the next video they drop could be even more scandalous. I remember one thing that stuck in my mind, that Planned Parenthood, after the first video dropped, they warned about the presence of potential, quote, racial material in some of these videos. That was a very strange thing to say. It certainly hasn't shown up yet in any of the videos we've seen, but I wonder why they would suspect that was a possibility. I assume they must have gone back and canvassed people that CMP had spoken to. I think that might be one of the next angles that shows up. And boy, if there's a racial angle, that's going to be really hard for the media to avoid, or legislators for that matter.
I'd just add, today's was a kind of a legal and moral dagger. If it gets worse from here, oh boy, heaven help us.
So we're glad to have Andrea Ruth has joined us here. Andrea, glad to have you here after the technical
Sorry about
difficulties.
that.
No problem. Let's go ahead and go to you with the next question. The latest video, I think, at least, is the most graphic of the ones that have come out. I think the last two have been graphic. And Boehner, and granted it's Boehner, he cries at the drop of a hat, but I think that he's right in saying that it's physically nauseating at some points of the video. Is there a risk of blowback from kind of some of the graphic quality of these videos? Where do you draw the line? Definitely you want to show. I think that, as Bill has said, the images hit home in a certain extent, but where is the point at which it becomes too much and you risk undoing the good that you've done with showing substantively what's wrong in terms of the sale of these organs?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that there is a point. I was never, of course, one of the people that ever needed to see these videos. I completely skipped the first two. I've seen most of the third one. But yeah, it definitely gets to the point of when does, this week's stuff was absolutely disgusting. But, they, in the 90s, when they were trying to do partial birth abortion, they kind of went the same way with graphic, and I think it really gets to people and makes them see what is actually happening when someone's having an abortion. But as far as going too far, a part of me has been a little bit like, okay, I don't need to see this, but I'm not the person that needs to see this anyway. So to be against abortion, at what point does it get to there? I don't know. I guess when the tide really starts turning right now, we're winning this because of CMP. So I don't see why we would stop now, or why they would stop now.
All right, so let's move on, and I'm gonna go over to Scott here. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the legal side of this. And I had a post on Red State today, and all of us who are lawyers who have done any level of criminal defense work know and have had clients, either individual or corporate clients, who have been put through the Department of Justice ringer on the basis of far less evidence than CMP has already drug out on Planned Parenthood. And instead of that, of course, we have the DOJ going after CMP for some alleged technical violation of the law that I don't even understand as an attorney. Is there some room here, and we don't want to take the focus too much off of the horror that we're seeing in Planned Parenthood, but is there some room here to say, look, prosecutorial discretion has become kind of a dangerous thing. It really has become a thing where you find the person that you want to charge with the crime, and then you basically find the crime that you're going to charge them with, instead of the other way around.
Well, it seems to be the case so far. I would always caution that, you know, we're still, particularly as the legal system goes, we're still pretty early on in this process. But the knee-jerk, the immediate reaction was to say, oh, we're going to look into CMP, not we're going to look into Planned Parenthood. I gotta say, after today's video, where they really are explaining how to circumvent the law, they are discussing a lot of the kind of revenue and profit motive involved here. It's getting pretty impossible to ignore, and so I'd say that, you know, if we go another week or two without any sort of even hint of legal action, then we can really talk about you know, whether there is prosecutorial discretion or whether it's abuse of prosecutorial discretion. It seems like the CMP thing was just it might have been just lip service trying to get donors and political supporters off their backs. We'll see if that really goes anywhere. It looks like this California restraining order thing also is a complete pile of crap. It exists, but it won't hold up. It doesn't look like. But you know, going forward, you know, especially down the line, it's going to be, I think, far more damning if nothing comes of it.
All right, so let me go to Jeff, and I'm sorry I'm skipping Neal. Neal will come back to you next. Let me go to Jeff, because Jeff and Scott can chime in on this as well. Sorry for the lawyer talk here, guys, but you know, every one of us, when we go to law school, one of the cases that we read in our textbooks is the Pentagon Papers case, right? I mean, I think literally everyone who's a lawyer is familiar with that case. Sure. And for those who are not familiar, of course, we had basically kind of military strategy / PR documents that were alleged to be national secrets that were leaked to the New York Times, and the Nixon administration basically ordered the New York Times to not publish them, and the case went all the way to the Supreme Court, which says, look, you can't, whenever you have items that are of the national interest like this, prior restraint, you can't prevent somebody from publishing it ahead of time. You let them publish it, and if there's any sort of criminal liability or anything that attaches, you address that after the fact. The First Amendment, there's a very high bar to clear for prior restraint like this. And to me, and I understand that the issues are somewhat different in the case of this injunction that Scott referenced. And for those who don't know, a judge in California has issued a temporary restraining order, which means less than 15 days effectiveness, at least initially, unless it's generated into a preliminary injunction. It's bothersome to me that to see this kind of thing happening, even on a temporary restraining order basis, where you have a judge basically disregarding one of the most important principles that we're supposed to hold dear, which is to say that the judicial branch or any other branch of government should not be telling any media organization that they can't publish anything that's of the public interest unless it's going to basically the codes to the nuclear football. I mean, that level, I mean, if the release of the Pentagon Papers didn't cut it, whatever it is that STEM Express is alleging they might suffer is not going to cut it. So, I mean, I guess the problem that I have, Jeff, and I'm going to ask you to comment on this TRO, if you will, is what can be done about, and this is not by any means the only instance of a judge doing this. We talked about this a number of weeks ago with the judge that slapped a gag order from the people on the people from Reason, from talking about, you know, their court case. What can you do about a judge who violates something that should be so sacred and on which the Supreme Court has been so clear?
Well, it is a pretty complex case. First of all, it's worth pointing out that the STEM, whatever the organization is, asked the judge for a whole hell of a lot more than the judge was willing to grant them. But, you know, it's funny. Neal and I were talking with Kurt Schlichter, who is an attorney out in California. He's actually very familiar with practice in L.A. County and L.A. Superior Court the other day. And he pointed out something that occurred to me, too, when I looked at the case, is that CMP is going to be out-lawyered on this. It doesn't really matter the merits. You got McDermott, Will, and Emery. It's a big law firm, not the most prestigious firm in the world, but it's a good one. And they have a lot of money and a lot of lawyers, and they threw a lot of stupid-ass charges, including, like, stuff like tortious interference in contract and all sorts of, they literally probably just had an associate bang out some stuff and bill, Planned Parenthood $500 an hour for it. Meanwhile, CMP has got like one lawyer in California representing them who barely practices. So, setting aside the merits of the case, I am not as optimistic as other people are that they are going to get this thing immediately thrown out. I think you have to rely on the judge to see through, high-quality lawyering in order to assume that, and that's never a given. The other issue, when it talks about the Pentagon Papers case, is that was a question of the, quote, national interest. Specifically, it was the Vietnam War, which, of course, in 1971, which is when the Pentagon Papers case happened, was obviously a matter of, obvious and national pressing concern. You're going to have a slightly heavier lift, although it doesn't seem the way to us that it might to other people. You're going to have a slightly heavier lift arguing that, say, your breach of contract involving, or in fact, wiretapping and taping laws and revealing of trade secrets involving this private company is a matter of national interest, is a matter of the same sort of pressing concern. We wish it were the case.
No. The matter of national interest is a company that receives federal funding and involved in a nationwide criminal conspiracy to violate...
Right, well, we can allege the facts and structure them any way we want. Obviously, if I'm writing my brief or my response, that's the way I'm going to put it. But is the judge going to buy that? Is the judge in Los Angeles, California going to buy that? Boy, I wouldn't bet on that necessarily. And so I'm saying this is the kind of classic bruiser battle that comes down to what kind of lawyers you have. And that's why I think we shouldn't be quite so glib about just assuming that, oh, this is an easy prior restraint case and it's going to be laughed out of court. The angels don't always win.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on a little bit to topic number 2 that we're going to discuss. And we've got a number of stories that have hit the news over the last week or so that deal with various aspects of the way the Obama administration has handled their email correspondence. Neal, we're going to go back to you since we skipped you for the first question, and this one goes to the IRS scandal, a scandal that I thought was basically left by the road for dead, and that basically all the political good that could come out of it had already been milked out of it. But now we have this particular scandal heating back up. Of course, the folks over at Judicial Watch are involved in some litigation over this particular issue, and they had served some discovery requests and had gotten an order to compel basically the production of all of Lois Lerner's emails over to Judicial Watch, which the IRS essentially responded by summarily ignoring the judge's order. So a federal judge yesterday ordered the IRS to turn over the Lerner emails, and furthermore threatened from the bench, per the transcript, to personally haul Koskinen in and have him show cause that he should not be held in contempt. So I guess the question with respect to this particular scandal is, I mean, is this a zombie scandal? I mean, is this one back alive and something that is going to come back into the press, especially if we see the IRS commissioner thrown in jail for contempt for refusing to turn over Lois Lerner's emails?
Yeah, that would certainly be a new development there. I'm not sure what's going to come of that. To be honest, these things sort of, they have a way of kind of going to sleep on us for a little while, and then someone like a judge will threaten to imprison the commissioner or charge him with contempt of court, the commissioner of the IRS. So will it actually result in any new information? Oh gosh, that's hard to say. They've been so cagey for the last, how long has it been? 2 years that we've been trying to get these records. I wouldn't count on it before the election. I wouldn't count on any real developments. I wouldn't count on this really being a factor. But hey, I've been wrong about, well, very few things in my life, but it has happened. So I wouldn't discount the possibility that this could come back. It could shamble forward like a zombie, as you said, and bite someone's brains out. I don't know. Could be interesting.
Bill, one of the emails that was uncovered by Judicial Watch, one of the ones that actually has been turned over, covered an email exchange between Lois Lerner and Cindy Thomas, the kind of the Cincinnati functionary that Obama has thrown under the bus for this whole thing. And in this email, Lerner basically acknowledged that there were hundreds of cases awaiting action applications for tax-exempt groups. And she says, I'm going to quote from the email here, just today I instructed one of my managers to get an additional information letter out to one of these organizations. That, let me interject, that's one of those letters that they basically harass the organizations to tell a bunch of information they're not legally required to tell. So she says, just today I instructed one of my managers to get an additional information letter out to one of these organizations, if nothing else to buy time so that he did not contact his congressional office. She goes on to say in the email that she had concerns that the judge would get involved and order applications to move more quickly. This is clear admission on her part that they were attempting to basically cover up the fact that they were targeting these specific groups and taking steps to keep that from reaching the limelight. Will that provide more mileage to the scandal? And I guess, will it, presuming that Hillary is the nominee, is this something they can tie back into the Clinton of the IRS as a scandal machine? Or is that something that's too long ago? The American public had just forgot.
Well, I think if Donald Trump's sex life in the 80s with Ivana Trump is on the table, and this may be the only good thing that Donald Trump has brought to the GOP presidential field, is that the media now thinks it's not old news to cover sex scandals from back in the 90s. And if that is not old enough, if that doesn't meet the statute of limitations, then this scandal certainly shouldn't. And Democrats should be forced, and voters should be reminded about the type of political punishment and targeting that they imposed on groups like the American Spectator in the late 90s. You know, these guys weaponized the IRS in a way that nobody since Nixon had done. And Obama, once again, is weaponizing the IRS in a way that hasn't been seen since the Clinton administration. So I think this is certainly an issue that should be kept fresh and should be used to remind voters about what kind of person Hillary Clinton is. Even among Democrats, 51% of Democrats in a, I believe it was Quinnipiac poll today, said that they did not trust Hillary Clinton. If 50% of voters don't trust you in your own party, then I don't think that the independents out there can trust you to handle government and use the IRS in a way that isn't politically motivated. So I think that's the context in which we should present this. Is not only is she untrustworthy, but her own husband's policies and administrative practices during his administration should all be covered anytime we're talking about Hillary Clinton here.
Andrea, so one of the more bizarre things that happened news-wise last week was that on Friday afternoon you had both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal basically issuing simultaneous stories indicating that there had been a criminal referral by the Justice Department into the email practices of Hillary Clinton. On Monday, the New York Times retracted their story. The Wall Street Journal stood behind theirs and has since indicated that they were given good information and that subsequently there has been some clarification as to what. Was it a criminal referral? Was it just some concerns raised by the Inspector General? What do you think about this story? I mean, are you one of the people that puts their conspiracy hats on and says, yeah, it probably was a criminal referral, and then someone at DOJ called the NYT and the Wall Street Journal in a panic and said, no, it wasn't that at all, and are trying to cover this whole thing up? Or was there really a kind of a miscommunication between the fairly reliable sources that both newspapers got as to what was going on with respect to Hillary's emails?
I think that you can probably, I mean, everybody has a little bit of, especially with this DOJ, I mean, there's an outside chance that happened. But yeah, there, like they said, you know, there was just probably it was sent to the FBI, but that was just part of process and not because it was some kind of huge deal. But I don't think in the end that it's really going to matter that much. It just doesn't seem to be mattering that much. And the fact that they retracted it and it's just kind of gone, I mean, it seems to have just gone away, especially, I mean, it was on Twitter for a day, but it went away. So whether or not it was something that was scrambled after when you have two, you know, large newspapers saying that it was a criminal and the DOJ saying it was criminal, I don't know. Like I would say that for me at least, there's an outside chance, I'd say, well, yeah, I mean, that could be possible. It seems like this DOJ is capable of doing anything, but and not above using politics, but what DOJ isn't. And but whether or not that was the case, I just don't think so.
So staying with you for just a second, Andrea, so do you think, regardless of what you think about whether there was or was not a criminal referral, I think that what is clear is that the Inspector General report, I think, clearly indicated that there were, in fact, classified emails that were sent through Hillary's personal email, which is directly contradictory to what she said before. So regardless of whether you think that's criminal or not criminal, I mean, that fact alone, I think, has been more or less confirmed. Do you think that is something that could end up damaging Hillary down the road?
Oh, I hope that it's already, yeah, I think that it will. You know, a lot of people on her side try to say, well, it wasn't classified at the time, and that's kind of the key phrase that they're going to try and use, I think, throughout the election cycle, is at the time, that she didn't know it was classified at the time. And but does it matter, and will it ultimately affect? I don't think so.
So, Jeff, let's move over to you. There was a revelation this week that one of Hillary's State Department staffers turned over multiple boxes of emails from Hillary's private account that were previously heretofore unknown and not read. And even Ron Fournier, who Erickson likes to call Hillary Clinton's fluffer, has admitted this is having a drip, drip, drip effect. You know, he had that great tweet with drip, 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 and a link to the latest story. And I guess the question is, if you're Hillary, is why not, at this stage of the campaign, when you're essentially bulletproof, you're leading your own party's polls by like 40 points, why not just turn it all over? I mean, why not get the damage done and trust the fact that in a year and a month, or however long it's going to be before people start paying attention, nobody's going to care about this story anymore?
Well, two reasons for that. One, because I think it's gone. I think she probably actually did delete it. Maybe her attorney has a copy on a thumb drive, but she's not going to hand that over. But two, because she knows she doesn't have to. The law treats her differently. It reminds me of that. There's an old song by Bob Dylan called "The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll," and then the final verse has just got this incredible line that absolutely perfectly captures the completely different world that people like Hillary Clinton and, by the way, to a lesser extent, someone like David Petraeus live in when it comes to mishandling classified information. There's this line where he says, "In the courtroom of honor, the judge pounded his gavel to show that all is equal and the courts are on the level and the strings in the books ain't pulled or persuaded and even the nobles get properly handled." And then, of course, at the end of the song, you know, the judge hands out like a 5-month sentence to a person who murdered somebody in cold blood, which is exactly what happens here. Hillary Clinton, at this point, with that survey, that 40-email survey that found that 10% of her emails already handled classified information in them from CIA, DIA, ONFI, and any number of other agencies, at that point, if you were a regular citizen, you're going to jail. People go to jail behind that. And I mean regular people on a regular basis go to jail behind that kind of handling of classified information. But of course, Hillary Clinton isn't going to go to jail behind that. We were talking earlier, Andrea, and you were talking earlier about criminal referrals. Here's the truth. Something is a criminal referral if the government says something is a criminal matter if the government says it's a criminal matter. You can analyze the elements of a case all you want, but at the end of the day, it's the government that makes that charging decision. And if the government decides that some people just don't get treated the same way because they exist on a higher tier or a higher plane than the rest of us plebes, well, then it isn't a criminal matter. And the thing that constantly outrages me about this entire scandal isn't the whole, oh, Hillary's dishonest, I don't want her to be president, and all that stuff. It's the fact that if any other person in her situation on a lower level did the same things with classified information, they would be in a jail cell for a very long time. And it just makes me so mad that I sometimes can't even see straight about it.
So, Scott, let's go back to you. And I read a piece by Ruth Marcus in the Washington Post yesterday. Ruth Marcus and Brent Budowski compete to be my favorite columnists who will say literally anything in the defense of Hillary Clinton, really on the planet. It's truly astounding their
Charles
talent.
Blow?
No, Charles Blow is that guy for Obama. For Clinton,
Okay.
it's Ruth Marcus
Got it.
and Brett Gudowski. Those are my two.
Got it.
So Ruth Marcus, she's actually in the course of this column explaining why these latest revelations are no big deal. She says, look, in the course of this column, basically saying nothing to see here, Officer Barbaretti says when she finally turned over thousands of emails to the State Department, she should not have taken the provocative step of deleting thousands more from the server. A move guaranteed to fan conspiracy theories, not quiet them. When the matter became public, she should have tried to quell the predictable firestorm by turning over the server. She should have stopped insisting, as she did on CNN this month, that she was not only blameless but praiseworthy. And then goes on to say, but all that notwithstanding, it's no big deal here. Now listen, this is so obviously good advice from Ruth Marcus that, hey, look, just turn it all over, everything will be fine, I'm sure there's an explanation. Doesn't the fact that Clinton ignored it from the beginning mean that she's probably hiding something really damning that was in those emails?
Well, I mean, it would seem that there's either something really damning in terms of the content of the emails, or there's something damning in terms of the handling. So, for example, the classified information and so forth. And yeah, you know, I kind of thought Marcus might have been, doing all of this tongue-in-cheek. But considering I think she and Hillary are like mahjong partners, it's probably not the case. The string of malfeasance that has occurred with Hillary and just really boggles the mind. But I am still not convinced it's going anywhere. It's just, you know, it seems that the public does not really have the attention span to deal with these kind of long, drawn-out, slow-walk scandals. And I think that Clinton knows this. And so unless there is some sort of major revelation, I think you're going to continue to see people like Ruth Marcus, and you're going to continue, spinning, and you're going to see the media get bored, and everyone will be mesmerized by Donald Trump's hair, and the next thing you know, we're voting in November 2016.
Now, Neal, you and I think, are in basic agreement as to the basic utility of the Benghazi thing, which I have to admit, after further reflection, I may have been erroneous about. So I don't know where you are on whether Benghazi is still a useful thing to throw against the wall at Hillary. But one thing that I think is awesome is that Michael Bay is apparently producing a movie set to be released in January about the Benghazi disaster. And Bay, for all of his excesses as a director and whatever you think about his movies and what he did with the Transformers franchise, has made some movies like The Island and so on and so forth that have had some kind of strikingly conservative themes. Does this have a chance to be the next kind of American Sniper movie that hangs on for 5-6 months in the theaters and really kind of helps to shape the national narrative next year going into 2016?
I believe it'll probably hang on in theaters and do well. As to whether it'll actually shape anybody's narrative who doesn't already have a narrative in place, I don't think so. I haven't watched the trailer myself. I imagine it'll be a slightly fictionalized version of events. It'll be punched up a little bit, extra explosions, a little more drama. But as to actually changing anybody's mind, I don't think so.
It may at least one Transformer. I am guaranteeing you there will be at least one.
It'll be in it'll be in the Libyan desert, or while they're dragging Ambassador Stevens through the streets naked and sodomizing him. The Transformer will be in the background somewhere. So that's the thing. I don't think anybody who has an opinion about Benghazi will change their opinion about Benghazi based on this film. And so I do not think it will be an issue in 2016. I don't think it was ever really going to be any kind of silver bullet. So
it's going to be great.
I might still go see it, though.
It's going to be great when they're like, we called in air support to come save us, and then they cut to a frowning Transformer, just being given the order not to fly. Michael Bay is the world's best troll right now. I mean, of course he's a conservative. He's a rich man. He objectifies women. He he believes in the apprenticeship system. Instead of like going and hiring somebody from Juilliard, he hires Megan Fox because she washed his car in a bikini. I mean, this guy should be the megalomaniacal millionaire instead of Trump in the GOP field. I would love to see a Trump-Michael Bay ticket in 2016 just to see how butthurt liberals could get.
What Michael Bay and Clint Eastwood, and we're digressing a little bit here, understand that...
We're not digressing. We're giving the people what they want.
Exactly. Well,
and what they
look, the success of American Sniper illustrates that there's like an entire half of the country whose political beliefs are being absolutely ignored in terms of movies. I mean, good movies, not the terrible dreck that I'm sorry, a lot of these conservative alternatives. The Atlas Shrugged movie, which is not conservative to begin with, but all this other crap that comes out. In terms of good movies, there's an entire half of the country that's starving and dying for good movies to go see to reflect even some small shred of what they believe in or think about this country. And good for Michael Bay for at least recognizing that. Even if a guy who is basically made to make a franchise of movies about robots punching and shooting each other made the whole thing about the worst, whiniest people on the planet instead of the giant robots. But let's move on a little bit and talk. We're in the part of the year where, or a part of the season where we can't really have a show without talking a little bit about 2016. So we're going to go back to Bill. It's his turn. Boy, we sure have had several polls in a row now with respect to 2016 that have shown Donald Trump with a fairly commanding lead. So I guess the question I have for you is how long is Trump stay in the lead? Bill, you're muted.
My bad. Trump will stay in the lead until the Mets acquire a slugger. So I guess he's got the nomination wrapped up at this point.
Hey, you know who you guys could really use is Carlos Gomez. I think he did really well on the. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You know what? Everybody, I'm glad that Joy brought this up because I'm going to throw. This piece has been rejected by everybody. This think piece I have curdling in my mind about how the Mets are exactly like Mitch McConnell in that they torpedoed the defund Planned Parenthood bill, and then they're going to put it up as a standalone bill just to watch it get vetoed, and then the status quo will remain, and they'll say, hey, at least we tried. The Mets torpedoed the Carlos Gomez deal so that they could say, hey, we tried to get Carlos Gomez, but, he's just not healthy. So the New York Mets are Senate Republicans and do not deserve our support. Except they're still going to get it because what the hell else am I going to do except for flog myself?
I just want to point out that the Mets lost an agonizing one-run game tonight, and the Nationals won a very close one-run game tonight. 3 games back, Bill. Suck on it.
Yeah.
Zach Wheeler and Wilmer Flores is too high a price to pay for Carlos Gomez at the age of 30 anyway.
I would have thrown out Montero, instead of Wheeler. But, who knows if he's ever going to come back healthy again.
All right, so Bill, Trump, how long does he stay in the lead?
How long will Trump stay in the lead? Oh, I actually stand by my thing. I think we'll acquire someone this winter. So I see Trump imploding about October.
All right, Andrea. There was a piece today. Rubio had a minute that he looked like he was going to basically seize control of the Republican field and run away with it. And now it looks like a lot of his kind of key donors are looking elsewhere and making donations to other candidates. Has his moment come and gone, or will we see a Rubio resurgence like we saw in 2008 with McCain, where he kind of reemerges after his campaign is left for dead by the side of the road?
I think that'll really depend on the first debates that are coming up. It seems like a lot of his donors have gone elsewhere. A lot of his Florida donors seems like they wanted him to stay as a senator. So when he closed down that campaign and switched to just having a presidential campaign, and so many of his donors didn't donate their money. So it'll really depend on those first debates are going to be really key for him, and hopefully also key for Trump, and he just falls out. So.
It probably didn't help Marco Rubio that his campaign took longer than Hillary Clinton to condemn the Planned Parenthood videos as disturbing. His campaign refused to take a position on this. He had a lonely tweet from his Senate office, which was surprising because he's spoken such sweet, flowery words in praise of the pro-life cause, but he won't actually.
But he got on CNN for tweeting about how we're more concerned about Cecil the lion than all these babies that are being harvested.
And that was his campaign's I believe his campaign's first statement on this, which came less than 24 hours after Hillary Clinton called the video disturbing, which is a little shocking, isn't it?
He was just waiting for that lion to get killed. That's right. Moment.
That's right. Him and Cecil Richards killed the lion, I'm pretty sure.
So, Scott, going back to you, it's been a while since we've heard from you. Sorry to distract you from your Rangers game that's going on there.
No problem.
Does Joe Biden right now have a legitimate window to enter the race and knock Hillary off his pedestal? And I ask this because Josh Kraushar had, I think, the best, most compelling case for that in National Journal today that I've seen. And Josh is a guy that I know and respect. I mean, is this just kind of wishful thinking to stave off boredom about the Democratic primary, or do you think that if Biden got in, he could make some noise?
Well, yeah. So let me start with answering kind of the implicit question, and that is, right now everybody is extremely bored. I'm increasingly convinced that very little of any of this matters, including the Trump stuff and the Rubio stuff and the debate stuff and all of this. No one's really paying attention. Everyone's extremely bored, and that's why you're getting think pieces on the Mets being like Mitch McConnell. So that being said, there's a window for Biden in the kind of theoretical sense. I don't think there is one as you think about it more seriously. As you think about him needing the kind of infrastructure, I don't think the Obama for America OFA team is going to be ready and willing to go for Biden. I think that he is, as we all know, a walking gaffe. Although now I think totally impervious because he's gaffed himself to now being invincible. So, everybody hates Hillary, but I still don't think that means they're ready for crazy Uncle Joe. As much as I wish we were ready for crazy Uncle Joe, because truly, I think a Biden-Trump election is finally the election that America not only needs but deserves at this point. And I, for one, would really, really be excited to watch it.
Sorry, I was muted there. Neal, you're up next. So Clinton has come under some fire recently for basically having an inability to answer basic questions. Most hilariously, when she was asked about the Keystone Pipeline and basically said, well, hey, look, if that's still a live issue, after I get elected, come back and ask me and I'll have an answer for you at that time. Is this something that can continue, all the way through the Democratic primary? And I guess I'm asking the same question 20 different ways. Is she literally bulletproof at this point? Is there nothing she can do to create a realistic window for Biden or Sanders or whoever it might be?
The only other person they have who could be elected is Biden. I personally, I think Jim Webb would probably make a better president than Hillary Clinton, but he's not going to have the same level of support. They don't have anyone else, so they are going to just let this stuff go. I mean, you've seen the media has allowed themselves to be herded with ropes, and they don't press her on these evasive answers. They kind of, if they really wanted to, they could shout questions at her like she was someone who was, interviewing for a job as president. That we had people running after Mitt Romney in 2012 shouting, "What about your gaffes?" Well, what about answering my question, Secretary Clinton? Why don't they run after shouting that? That and we're just going to have to deal with that. That's just going to be a fact of life until 2016 when Hillary wins the presidency and we all set ourselves on fire. After that, we won't have to worry about it. We'll all be dead, but she will still be president. So unless maybe somebody maybe Republicans will stop sitting around in the corner shitting in their hands and throwing it at each other long enough to mount a significant defense against the Clinton machine. I don't know. I mean, I'm not psychic, Leon.
I think Neal has been spending a little too much time reading the Nihilist Arby's Twitter feed.
As a psychic,
Really?
Neal, I can say that I disagree with you, even though I wasn't paying attention. I have no idea what we're talking about.
All right, so we got two more quick substantive questions, and then we're gonna try something new technologically. But let's get to those questions first. Bill, you're a labor guy. I saw a piece today that Big Labor appears ready, at least, to throw their hat in the ring behind Bernie Sanders whole hog, and he's brought on Cohen and a lot of other Big Labor people into his official campaign. And I guess question for you is in two parts. Number one, will it happen? And number two, the interesting thing for me will be to say, will it have any effect? I mean, will a huge, massive labor endorsement or group of endorsements for Bernie Sanders still move the needle in Democratic politics, or have they lost that power?
It's not that they've lost the power, it's the labor groups, specifically which ones look like they're going in Bernie's favor. Now, the AFL-CIO flipped out when the American Federation of Teachers endorsed Hillary Clinton because they basically broke a gentleman's agreement under the AFL-CIO umbrella saying, hey, we're not going to endorse anybody until AFL-CIO personally meets with every candidate, and AFT went ahead and endorsed Hillary anyway. Now, Bernie, you can expect Bernie to win the endorsement of the laborers' union. You know what would be a big union for Bernie Sanders to win would be Unite Here or SEIU. He needs to not just win endorsement from a shrinking private sector labor force. He needs to win the endorsement of a union whose members are in demographics that are out big for Hillary Clinton. So something like a Hispanic-heavy Unite Here membership, or something like a female-heavy teachers union would have to endorse him in order for it to make a big difference. And I don't see that happening here. I think Bernie Sanders wins warm words from union members. I think he wins some votes from the membership. I don't think he is going to win the elite executive level endorsement that he needs.
Yeah, and let me add one quick thing here. The unions have a long-standing tradition of dangling their endorsements and their campaign dollars in front of candidates in order to push them left on policy positions. So a lot of this, we're going to Bernie, in my opinion, is most likely a just attempt to get Hillary to push left on trade and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and all number of other issues that are out there that so far, like Keystone, that kind of stuff, that she's just kind of holding off on. So they want her to start voicing more union policy positions, or they're going to keep pretending to go elsewhere. But let's face facts: the union has a monopsony problem. They only have one buyer of their product, and that is the Democratic candidate. So if you're the Democratic politician, why do you really care? It's not like they're going in elsewhere. Again, unless the Republicans nominate somebody like Huckabee, who, of course, was out recently courting the unions because he's horrible.
Well, I mean, the union vote is a lot like the pro-life vote. It's just totally taken for granted by the party because they say, hey, where else are you going to go?
Yeah. So last real quick question. I want to get Andrea on this one. We would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about Cecil the Lion. Andrea, what's your take on this story? Putting aside the kind of ridiculous amount of attention that's been spent to it, I mean, what do you think about what happened with Cecil there? I mean, is this something that we should be concerned about at all? What happened over there?
This is actually something that kind of got me a little bit worked up, especially this morning. I kind of ignored it yesterday, but I spent quite an amount of time in South Africa when I was in my 20s, and I actually knew a family that had, it was a white family, that had been, all of their land had been confiscated and they had to emigrate to South Africa. So when it comes to lions and when we're putting it into context with human life and what's going on, I mean, tanking your currency seems a little bit, and your economy seems a little bit more important, and why Zimbabweans would be willing to take $55,000 to kill a lion. Those seem like a little bit more important issues. The guy was a dick. I mean, he shouldn't have done what he did. He was told not to do what he did. He says it was on the up and up. Should he have his life destroyed? No, but, you know, I don't like that guy, but at the same time, there's a culture over there of doing this stuff. So what do you know, we're putting our first world mentality onto a third world problem, and it's always going to be fraught with difficulty on our end.
It does seem a little troubling that people are more concerned about the fact that Zimbabweans don't have a friendly lion to point and look at than the fact that they have something like 84,000% inflation every single year.
Their president eats lions routinely. He ate a baby elephant for his 93rd birthday. Zimbabweans don't care about the lion.
Did you see the Yahoo thing? The villager was like, "You guys care about a lion? What about the villagers who get eaten by lions?
How about us?" Yeah. They don't care about the lion. We care about the lion because we have horribly misplaced priorities. Now, let me tell you, I want to agree with Andrea in part, but also disagree. I think that all the points she made about Zimbabweans and their lives and everything valid. However, I don't have any problem whatsoever with anybody killing lions. I think that if we were to invest in lion hunting stock, people could just go and hunt lions. We would have a higher population of lions worldwide.
This is very true.
But he was asked
the libertarians with me. See, it's a market solution.
No, there are studies on like how ivory trade. If it were legal, if ivory trade were legal, we'd have a lot more elephants as well. The market works, people. The market works.
Kill lions, hunt elephants, everything.
In this specific case, though, in this specific
more elephants than anyone else.
In this specific case, though, it was Cecil that they asked him not to kill because Cecil has been on TV and brings in tourism dollars to see that lion.
Okay.
Well,
whatever. So they killed the mascot. Like I would still go to a Mets game if we killed Mr. Met. Mr. Met gets stabbed on the F train. You know, I'm still gonna go to the Mets. I'm not gonna go like, oh no, Mr. Met's not there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great image of Bill McMorris murdering Mr. Met.
That giant head with the big hole in it.
No, the giant head's severed, and it's like hung on a pike, you know, and it's just Mr. Met's head on a pike like Game of Thrones. That would be great.
Yeah, definitely. And instead of an ISIS flag, it's just a Free Beacon logo. This is what happens when you torpedo the Gomez deal.
As I said earlier today, it seems to me that the reason people are so upset about this is that nobody names any gazelles. Because if they did, instead of being a cute and cuddly animal, Cecil would be a mass murderer and hated throughout the entire world. So let's move on. We're going to try to close off the show here with something new. Our free podcast that we do, that everyone does here for absolutely free and no remuneration of any kind. Aaron has actually invested some money to get us some production value here, and we appreciate him doing that. And we're going to attempt to show a little bit of the Planned Parenthood video today, just so that our viewers who might not have seen it can have a look. This is just a sampling of the video so that you all can see what is out there in case you haven't had time to look at it before now. I think we've edited out all the parts that might make anyone physically ill, but it's still the compelling stuff that you need to see and understand what it is that people are talking about. So we're going to try this. If it crashes everything, we apologize. We'll try it again next week. But if not, we appreciate you being with us. I want to say thanks to my panelists, Scott Lincicome of the Cato Institute, Neal Doing of the Federalist, Jeff Blehar of the Ace of Spades Decision Desk, F. Bill McMorris of the Washington Free Beacon, and Andrea Ruth of Pocketful of Liberty. Stay here. Stay here. We're going to try to run this video. Aaron, roll it now. Aaron? Have we got it?
Hello, I'm Bob Simon from 60 Minutes. This is embarrassing.
So much for the world of high technology.
I think no. He said they used to pick up his wife at the airport.
I just wanted to point out that as long as that little live corner button there is orange, I'm
No,
going to
that's
be...
fine. No, listen, our viewers have become used to this by now. So,
Yeah. So
They've gone to
freestyle rap
bed.
battle. Andrea, since you're a guest, you have to freestyle rap battle Scott. Good luck rhyming Lincicome.
all right. So Aaron informs us that it's not working for now. We're going to try to get it. We're going to try to get here in a couple of weeks. I'm sure there will be a new Planned Parenthood video for us to attempt, and we will try to get that done. Sorry we couldn't get it done today, but thank you for sticking with us. And next week we're going to be gone. We're not going to have a show because most of us who are involved in the production of this will be in Atlanta at the Red State Gathering. Hope to see plenty of you there. Come up to me, shake my hand, say hello to me, say hello to Aaron. Anybody else planning on being there? No? All right, well, see Aaron and I if you're there.
If you go, be sure to say something nice about me. Please. I need the love.
We'll know better. We'll know better. Thanks very much. See you next time on the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Friends.
Lincicome has been so dumb. See, I knew I could freestyle rap battle Scott.
It's really impressive.
I think